Okay, guys and girls, welcome to day 12 of your alternate learning days. This is Tuesday, March the 31st. Um, your lecture today is over inflation. As you can see here, we're continuing with Unit 6, Economic Indicators in the Business Cycle notes. So if you have your guided notes to continue finishing out, um, go ahead and get those out and get ready. Go into presentation mode here with this. And um, there we go. Now, as you see here, we're looking at the standards, social studies, economics, macroeconomics, standard one. Now we're looking at defining the consumer price index, inflation, and explaining how they are used to evaluate, again, those macroeconomic goals of mainly what we're looking at now is the macroeconomic goal of stable prices. Okay. Um, when we talk about inflation, when we talk about consumer price index, we are talking about prices that people pay. We are talking about how much things cost and how those things can change over time for people. Um, and especially you look at substandard D here, give examples of who benefits and who loses from that unanticipated inflation. So yes, inflation can be good. It can be bad for different people. Most people think of inflation, think of it as being bad. It can be good. It can be bad. And we'll go into more explanation with that here as we go. So first and foremost, what is inflation? Well, there's a two-part thing to inflation. Inflation, first and foremost, is a general increase in prices. And I think most people know that right off the bat. When you talk about inflation, most people automatically assume, oh, we're talking about prices going up. Things are more expensive now than what they used to be. And that is correct. That is the primary part of inflation. But at the same time, it is a fall or a decrease in the purchasing value of your money. So not only do prices go up, but as those prices go up, your money is somewhat less valuable at that point because the money that you've had and used for so long won't get you as far as it used to. When I was in high school, um, gas was dirt cheap. I could fill up my gas tank on my car for about $10. If I had that same car today, I would not be able to fill it up for $10 because the price of gas has gone up. Therefore, my $10 that I used to use to fill up my tank won't go that far anymore. Okay. And that's simply because with that increase in prices, the purchasing value of my money has decreased, has gone down because I can't buy as much as I used to. Okay. Now, how do we know whether or not inflation is taking place? It's measured by checking the price of goods in the economy, and this is called a market basket. Okay. And this is, again, just a selection of goods in the economy. We check those prices from year to year. You take basic items that most people in urban settings will use. Nothing too exotic, nothing that is extreme, but simple basic items that most people would buy because you want to see how this is affecting most Americans or most people in society. So when you take and you put, you take an imaginary person, takes these items, puts them into an imaginary basket, calculates to see how much that basket of goods would cost them. And then you do the same thing in another year and you compare the prices from one year to the next to see how much the prices have changed. Okay. So looking at the value of the basket from one year to the next is called the consumer price index. Okay. So the value of those baskets gives us a number known as the consumer price index. Your key word there is price. Everybody knows that price is what inflation deals with. Inflation deals with prices going up, coach. Exactly. So when you hear consumer price index, what kind of price are consumers paying? That's all we're talking about. When people go and buy a basket of goods, What kind of price are those consumers paying? The consumer price index, or shortened to be CPI. Okay. But again, I highly encourage you, find those little key things, find those keywords, key elements that will tie one thing to another for you. And the key thing here is price, consumers and price. What are they buying? What are they paying? That's what gives you inflation. Okay. So you start with a market basket of goods, and that market basket of goods gives you consumer price, the consumer price index. Okay. Now, what does the consumer price index do for us? Now that we've seen this, we've compared these market baskets from one year to the next, that consumer price index gives us our purchasing power. What has happened to the purchasing power for consumers in the economy? And as that index rises, okay, as the index rises, the purchasing power decreases, which means the higher the CPI goes from one year to the next, the less you can buy from one year to the next. Okay. Changes in the CPI from one year to the next indicate what we call the inflation rate, and that's typically written as a percentage. So the key thing you need to see here, you are basically going from, and I'll show this to you again in a second, you're going from the market basket, and you're using that market basket to calculate CPI. Okay. And then you use CPI to calculate the inflation rate. Okay. So that's a big loopy R, but that's the way that it goes. You put the stuff in the basket, see how much it costs. Based on changes in those prices, you get a CPI. Well, based on CPI changing from one year to the next, you get the inflation rate to see exactly how much prices have increased from one year to another given year sometime in the future. Now, this is what it looks like. Okay. And a couple key things here. Again, this is not something you're going to have to know math wise. So the numbers don't really matter so much here as much as seeing what they do with the numbers. Okay. First off, I want you to notice again the path that I just drew out for you. You start here. Let me go back. Sorry. You start here with the market basket. Okay. Here are our items: eggs, calculator, microwave oven, some basic things. And you look at how many of them were bought, what did they cost in 1975, what did those same things cost in 1976. You can see that here you bought 22 dozen eggs at 50 cents a dozen in 1975, at 90 cents a dozen in 1976. You can see that the prices are increasing. But what's the inflation rate? That's the difference. Okay, you can see there's an increase, and you can see that we have different prices from 1975 to 1976. So what happens is, again, you take these items in the market basket, you take the market basket, and you use those to determine what is the CPI for each of those 2 years. Then, using those two CPIs, you can then calculate the inflation rate. Now, will you have to do that math? No, you will not. Don't worry about the math. Worry about the process. Market basket with these goods at these two separate prices. These give you this consumer price index. These give you this consumer price index for 2 different years. Then you bring those consumer price indexes together to get the inflation rate for 1976. How much did the prices go up from 75 to 76? Okay. So make sure you understand that. You don't have to do the math, and I'm going to repeat this and repeat it. You don't have to do the math, but market basket to CPI, CPI to inflation rate. And again, your key word, price, because price lets you know that you're dealing with inflation. Okay. Now we see here the question: did movie prices really change? Okay, and you could use this realistically with anybody. I'm going to click on this link right quick and pull this up. The Bureau of Labor and Statistics. This is the website we used when we did your research for your jobs. But just to give you kind of an example of how this stuff works and what kind of thing you can see, you see here that you can put an amount of money for a given month and year and see that it has the same buying power as a certain amount of money in 2020. So let's go back to the wonderful year of 1991. I was a junior / senior in high school. Okay. And I just said that I could fill my gas tank up with $10. Okay. Well, today that $10 would buy you $19.22 worth of gas. Okay. Or it has the same purchasing power as $19.22 today. Okay. So, going back to the question that there was before, used to hear old people all the time say, or older people, excuse me, let me be proper here. I could go to the back of my day, I could go to the movies and buy I can go to the movies, buy popcorn and a Coke for a nickel. Well, let's say it's 1939 and Gone with the Wind or Wizard of Oz just came out, and you went to the movies with a nickel. That means today that nickel would be worth 92 cents. Now, is that an exact replica? No. Okay. Because prices change on different things, and the inflation is not exact, but you can see that at the same time somebody who had a nickel back then basically has a dollar today. Okay. I think a better idea, to give you an example of purchasing power for things, what if I made $10,000 a year in 1939? That would basically be the same as making 184,000. The same as making 184,770 these days. Okay, that's a pretty big jump in how much money you're making from year to year. And again, this is not just about prices kicking up. This inflation calculator is about purchasing power. This is CPI. How much purchasing power? If somebody had $10,000 back then, they could buy the equivalent of stuff that would cost them $184,000 today. Okay, so just to give y'all kind of that idea and a little bit of understanding. And again, this is the Bureau of Labor and Statistics website, and they have the inflation calculator on there. If you want to take some time, go on there, play around with that calculator a little bit. Most people like to go on there and say, hey, if I had this much money in this time, go back, look at when your parents were in high school or your grandparents, especially right now, if y'all were stuck at home with parents or grandparents or aunts, uncles, or whoever. I don't know exactly how everybody's being quarantined right now, but take some significant years back in their lives and mess around with this calculator a little bit, see how much things have changed, find out how much your parents or grandparents may have paid for their first car or their first house, and see how far that money could go today. Have a little fun with it, especially in these times where we're looking for ways to entertain ourselves and keep ourselves sane. Okay, now we go back to the standard. Before, the standard said that you need to understand that unexpected inflation is good for some people and bad for others. So what does that mean? Well, first of all, unexpected inflation means when prices kick up out of nowhere. Okay. And again, they're good for some, bad for others. So for example, if we look at this, if you have a loan at 4% APR, what would inflation mean for you? Okay. If you have a fixed income, what would inflation mean for you? Okay. And thirdly, if you're trying to decide whether or not to hire another employee at your store, what would um, that inflation mean to you? Well, who gains and who loses? Here's the thing, the people that gain, okay, the people who say inflation is a positive thing, okay, so this is positive. So if they gain, this means that inflation is positive, is a positive thing for them. Okay. And that is debtors. People, these are people who owe other people money. If you owe someone else money, you are actually going to gain from inflation. Well, how in the world am I going to gain from them? How am I going to gain from inflation if I owe somebody else money? Because think about, we just said, um, you're paying with um, less valuable money. Over time, as prices inflate, as CPI goes up, the purchasing power goes down, which means the money you're paying with is not as valuable as it used to be. So, in other words, your payment should go up because you're paying with less valuable money. You should have to pay more money to keep paying off the debt the same, but you don't. But it doesn't. You keep your payments the same. If I'm paying $300 a month on a car, I pay $300 a month for 5 years, right? Every month I pay $300. Well, as prices creep up, as inflation kicks in, that $300 is less and less valuable. It has less and less purchasing power. So in all reality, I should be paying the bank or the car dealer or whoever I'm paying that money to more than $300 each month to still be making the same payment to them. But I don't have to. So in that way, I gain because I'm paying with less valuable money. Now, who loses? Well, the losers, let's stick to it first here, the bankers. They're getting payments of less valuable money. They're not getting the money value they should out of it. They're getting $300 that does not go as far as the $300 used to when I first started paying them back. So they are losing in that situation. Who else loses? People on fixed incomes. Okay. If I have a fixed income and I know it, and I got a set amount that comes into me month after month after month, if I'm retired, I'm on Social Security, I don't have, anything working for me that way, and all of a sudden prices start creeping up, I cannot adjust to higher prices. I'm stuck where I'm at. Okay. And if I'm stuck where I'm at and prices keep rising, if I can't make more money, the only way to get through that time of inflation is to start cutting some stuff out. That's when I got to start looking at, okay, I got to drive less places so I don't buy as much gas. I can't buy as many new clothes. I can't buy as much of this. I got to have this medication, so I can't get rid of it. What are you going to do? People on that fixed income lose out because they can't make the adjustment to those higher prices and make more money to meet their needs. Okay. Now, some people are neutral in this situation. In other words, some people level out. Okay. Some people level out. Even as prices go up, some people have what they call cost of living adjustments. You may sometimes see this written, and I, for the longest time, not being an econ teacher, didn't know what this was, but you may see things written sometimes in all capital letters as COLA, okay? COLA payments or things like that. It's cost of living adjustments, so that as the cost of living increases, as inflation rises, as prices go up, people will get a raise or an increase in their payments. Okay. A cost of living adjustment to your salary, a cost of living adjustment to retirement, or cost of living adjustment to Social Security, whatever it may be. If inflation goes up 3%, you get a raise of 3% so that you can still meet your needs based on the purchasing power of the money that you have. Okay. Now, these aren't always in place, but just so you know, if you ever see COLA in all caps in the news, they're not talking about Coke or Pepsi. They're talking about cost of living adjustments. Okay. And that's to neutralize the effect of inflation so that as prices rise, people's income can adjust with that and keep people being able to get the things that they need. Okay. So here's the main point I want you to get about inflation. People always think that inflation is bad. Coach Simmons, it is bad. Okay. Prices going up, things become more expensive. That is bad. Yeah, but no. Because you got to remember, we're ultimately talking about inflation in terms of an indicator for the economy. How is the economy doing? Is the economy good or bad? That's where you got to think about it for a second, because people think that inflation is bad, but, and that's a big but, okay? Good economy means that prices are rising. Why? Because prices rise when people spend money. I told y'all from the very beginning of this, people spending money is what makes the economy go. People spending money keeps the economy flowing, which is why everybody's in a panic about the economy right now, because so many people are not spending as much money as they usually do right now. Okay. So even though inflation is bad because it means you have to spend more of your money to get the same stuff, prices rising is actually an indication that people are spending and the economy is good. Because think about it. If people are scared to spend, what's going to happen is prices are going to start dropping to get people to buy stuff. But that just tells us we're in a bad economy. Okay. When times are bad, prices drop because people aren't spending money. I promise you, businesses will not drop prices just to be nice. They do it because people are scared to spend and they're trying to get people to do it. Classic example. Right now, all these restaurants out there, people aren't going and sitting in the restaurants and eating. So restaurants are losing money. Okay. Restaurants are losing money because customers are not coming out to eat. So what are the restaurants doing to try and get people to order food from them for delivery? They're dropping prices, not necessarily putting stuff on sale, but we will give you free delivery. We will waive the delivery fee right now through DoorDash or Uber Eats or whatever it may be. Okay. And we will deliver it for you to you for free simply because we want you to buy our food. Our economy right now for our restaurant is so bad that we're going to give you free delivery. There's your price drop because people aren't spending the money. So we're going to encourage you to do it anyway. Okay. That is that indication there. Okay. So if prices are rising, even though inflation may be bad in people's minds, it means the economy is good. Okay. Now, a couple more things. We'll also cover today, go ahead and cover aggregate supply and aggregate demand for you guys as well, and how they play into the macroeconomic goals. Coach, we just did an entire unit on supply and demand. You're right, but here's the kicker, and I'm gonna go through this relatively quick for you. Okay. Aggregate supply and demand are supply and demand on the aggregate. That is for the economy as a whole, not just an individual good or service. We're not talking about just supply and demand for cereal, supply and demand for burgers or fast food or anything like that. We're talking about for everything in the entire economy, okay? For all goods and services. Sorry about that. And we are basing it on price levels and real GDP. So we're basing it on inflation and real GDP, two things that we've already covered. Okay. So the big catch here is we're looking at aggregate, which again is on the whole. Okay. Now, this is stuff we would go into more in the if we were in the class, but I really just want to hit these main highlights with you guys. Okay, understand this is your aggregate supply curve. These are your aggregate demand curves. We still go demand to the land, supply to the sky. You just notice supply is a little flat to begin with. That's because costs don't go up at the very beginning of a recession. Okay, they don't go up to begin with. Not until things get better do prices start creeping up. So that's why it's flat. But you won't be quizzed on that. You won't be tested on that. Just know still supply to the sky, demand to the land, but there's just a little bit of flatness at the beginning with aggregate supply. Okay, but notice instead of price, we have price level here. Again, inflation. Okay, and down here we have real national income, which is GDP. Okay, so it's just so we're looking at when it comes to aggregate supply and aggregate demand, what happens to prices, what happens to GDP, or how much money people are spending. Okay, how much people are buying. So the more people buy, the higher prices get. So as look at it, we said before, as just like with regular demand, as aggregate demand shifts to the right, okay, as more stuff gets demanded, what happens to prices? More is going to be supplied and prices are going to creep up. Okay. So that's a little visual, but here's the key. Here's what I really want you to see with this is to know what this means for us. Okay. What are the main points? And when it comes to aggregate supply and demand, what I really want you focusing on is these main points, or are these main points, excuse me. Good economy means aggregate supply goes up. Okay. When the economy is good, businesses are going to be producing more and more stuff for people to buy, right? Now, in a bad economy, aggregate supply is going to go down because businesses are letting people go from jobs. When the economy goes down, there's less supply out there. Less people are working, less things are being made, ultimately because less things are being bought. Okay. So think about that from a business's perspective. If the economy is good, I can sell more stuff. I'm going to supply more stuff. I'm going to give people more jobs. All these kind of things tie in together. Now, when it comes to aggregate demand, what's the main point? With aggregate demand, our main point is, again, good economy, aggregate demand is going up. Why? People are spending, guys. When the economy is good, when people are sure about the way the economy is going, they're not scared to spend money. Right now, we're worried about a bad economy coming because our aggregate demand is going down. People are buying less stuff, except for now demand for certain items, right? Here's the big difference with aggregate demand and regular demand. When it comes to regular demand, just individual demand for toilet paper, demand for sanitizer, demand for Lysol wipes, those things are going up. But overall, big picture, people are not buying as many things. People aren't out buying new cars. People aren't out buying a bunch of new stuff. People are buying the basics. People are buying things that they need and essentials right now because we're not sure how long this is going to last. We're not sure exactly what's going on. Okay, which is creating a little bit of a bad economy for us right now because overall demand is going down because people are buying less stuff. Okay, make sure you make that connection and make sure you understand. And if you don't, I feel like I've gone through this a little quick, but it seems like it's stuff that should click for you. If you need to go back, listen to me again, do so. If you need to email or message myself or Miss Lane or Miss Fields and ask some questions to get clarification, let us know. If we need to do a Zoom and kind of talk through some things, let us know that too. Okay, guys, we're more than happy to help y'all with this. Now, so final thing, if GDP is increasing, aggregate demand is going up because GDP means that people are spending money. And as people spend money, aggregate demand goes up. Okay. Now, you should have already answered your warm-up question on Google Classroom. It's an article for you to read, question for you to answer. Use this lecture to fill in your guided notes for today. Remember, guided notes for Simmons classes are due by Sunday night, this coming up Sunday night, April the 5th at 11:45, along with all these other assignments for this week. Only other thing you need to do, there should be a link for a quiz for you, which will cover GDP, unemployment, inflation, and some aggregate supply, aggregate demand questions in there for you, those main key indicators. Okay. I hope you guys are staying up with your work. Let us know if you have questions or problems. Get your work done, get outside, get you some fresh air. Don't stay cooped up all the time. Keep a good social distance and you guys stay safe. We'll be back on Thursday. We'll post the video for the final section of the guided notes over the overall business cycle, along with a quiz and a warm-up question on that day as well. Stay safe, guys. Night.